Hello there, it's Jay here from Jay's Vintage Junk, and today we've not played with a record player for a while, have we? I know my mate Andy's been doing quite a few recently. I gave him one the other day, a Bush. I can't remember what it was. It's Bush RC31 or something like that. I know he likes them anyway. And Steve over at Steve 405, he was doing a little one of these little attaché case record players recently, one of the little one valve wonders, and it got me thinking about this. I've had this lying around for some time. Basically, what we got, this is a one valve wonder, or at least it was a one valve wonder here. I picked this up in a job lot of record players a while ago. I bought the job lot of record players for a couple of decent record players that I could service and sell on, and I did end up with a couple of cheaper players like this that, quite frankly, really aren't worth putting. Well, they weren't worth putting a lot of effort in. I wouldn't have got a lot out of them again. They were either missing parts or badly damaged or just not worth repairing. I mean, most of them are broke up for spares. This one I kind of kept around, and I kept it around because I was actually using it to prototype a few little amplifier ideas. That's the sole reason that this thing survived. Otherwise it would have been salvaged of all its useful parts, and the cabinet would have been broken up and ended up on the fire. But because I needed something, I wanted to do a few tests with it, I did keep it around for that purpose. And I kind of don't have the heart to just break it up now, so I thought I might do something interesting with it. Basically, what I was using it for, some of my handiwork inside here. This was originally what would be known as a one valve wonder. Now, don't be fooled by the fact there's two valves in it. The fact that they refer to it as a one valve wonder is the fact that it has one active valve. You can't really class the rectifier as an active valve, because all that does is convert your AC into DC. The active valve's what actually does the work. So like UL41, UL84, they're output valves, but it is just an output pentode. And these really cheap record players like that, that's all that they used. They had a high output crystal cartridge in them that could kick I think between 1 and 3 volts out, and they would just drive an output pentode directly off the crystal cartridge. So that's why they were called a one valve wonder, basically, because you had a high output crystal cartridge just banging its signal straight into an output pentode or triode or whatever. Obviously that goes through your output transformer and that drives your speaker, so you couldn't get much simpler. About the simplest one, I have seen one that didn't even use the rectifier valve. It actually used a solid state selenium rectifier, so that literally was a one valve wonder. Most of them actually use two valves. You've got either a UL84 or, in the earlier ones, possibly UL41, and then something like I think that's a UY85, or it'll be a Y series valve, just a single diode valve, not a bridge, because it just uses half-wave rectification, basically. So incredibly simple, cheap record players. The problem with them now is that high output crystal cartridge. They're incredibly expensive to get replacements for, and unfortunately all the replacements are new old stock, and these things degrade with basically poor storage. If they're stored in like damp or not ideal conditions, the crystals degrade in them. So even when you buy one that's, you might pay £40 for one. I've seen them for more than £40 before now. and it might be brand new old stock, but it's not necessarily say it's going to work. So what I was playing around here was it was a circuit I cobbled together. It's based on the circuit out of one of the Dansette Bermuda record players, and it basically replaced the UL84 with a UCL82, which is basically a triode pentode valve. So it'd give a stage of preamplification, which would mean you could use a lower output cartridge, and it works. It actually works very, very well. I've used it in a couple of record player repairs because it was actually cheaper to swap the valve and modify the circuit and use a lower output cartridge than it was to actually go and take the gamble of getting a new old stock high output cartridge for it. And so this is just the literally the amp chassis, because it was a nice chassis with a working smoothing capacitor. The valve holders were good and everything, and it had a speaker built into it and everything. As you can see, obviously I was just feeding it a line signal, and I literally just used it for messing about with that circuit. The output transformer, actually, this actual output transformer that was on here is dead. One of the reasons why I didn't bother really repairing the record player is that the output transformer was dead. The 3-volt cartridge was dead. The cabinet actually isn't in very good. It might look on the video that the cabinet's quite nice, and in some ways, yeah, it is, but unfortunately, it has got some major issues. It's split down the front there. That's not a major issue. I can easily just get a little bit of glue in there, get a sash clamp on it, pull that together, sort that out. Put the deck down. Still got some original mains lead. Just shove that in there. So the inside actually looks quite reasonable. The motor's in pieces on this thing. I actually used bits of the motor of this on other repairs. Like I said, this was basically a spares machine, but as you can see there, the platter runs absolutely faultlessly on it. It's got a really good idler in it as well. There is no bumps or hollows on the idler. One of the things with these really cheap little BSR players, you have one control on them there to select your speed. So you've got 16, a 33, a 45 and a 78. If you've got one of these and you're not using, once you finish playing your record, you need to turn that back to neutral. If you leave it in a speed, and it's left for any length of time, you'll actually end up damaging the idler wheel inside it, because the shaft will push against the idler wheel in one place and you'll actually mark it. And next time you come to use the player, when it speeds up, you'll get a dunk, 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 dunk noise coming from the deck where it's actually going over that. So if you are using one of these players with one of these cheap little BSI decks in it, always make sure when you finish playing just to knock it across into neutral. I said, fortunately, it looks like whoever had this had always done that, and because I pinched the motor shaft out of it for another project, like I said, it's not had that pushing up against it. So we do have a good idler in there. We're just going to have to sort another motor out, or build a motor out of the bits that I've got lying around. So inside, apart from that, like I say, it looks really quite tidy. It's got the original knobs on there. It's missing all its screws, but that's not a problem. The head shell itself, I mean, it's cheap, it's nasty, but it's all there. It's not cracked. It will work. The biggest problem, if we shut, let's get that so where we can close the player down. Let's stick that over there. So we even got all the bright work on it. The handle's good, the catches are good. So this is why it'd be a good spares machine, because all the catches, all the clips, or everything could be used on more worthy players, really. But I just don't want to break this one up. If we look at the back, It's got all its original hinges. They're not damaged. They're a little bit tarnished, but that's, I mean, it's getting on. This is either a very late 50s, 58, 59, or it's a 61, 60, 61 kind of age player. So it has got some age to it, so there's a bit of patina to the hinges. That's quite nice. Here's the biggest problem with the case, though. I don't know if you can make that out. That's here. Someone, unfortunately, before I got hold of this, has tried to clean it. And I don't know what they've used. They've used I don't know if they've used petrol or thinners or whatever they've tried to clean the top of the case with. Unfortunately, it's dissolved the finish. This is actually, I don't know if you can hear that, it's actually sticky. And no matter what I do, I can't sort that out. It's ruined the finish. Unlike the rest of the cabinet, this is vinyl. The red part of it. The top is actually done in this stuff that's called paper cloth. Now it was like a cheaper alternative to vinyl back in the day, and all the really cheap, nasty players tended to use this paper cloth rather than a proper vinyl. And you can't get it anymore. All you could do really would be to recover the top in like a vinyl. Which, yeah, we could do, but I've actually got something else I want to try with this. Because the player, it's not even a maked brand. I've looked all over it and there's no sign of a maker on it whatsoever. So it's literally one of these really cheap, generic, probably sold through one of the catalogue stores in the 60s, late 50s, early 60s style of record players. It doesn't even want to give you a brand name on it. So my plan with it, because it's so far gone, it would cost far more than it's worth putting into it to restore this player back to absolutely original how it would be. We're going to have a bit of fun with it. We're going to do a bit of a modernisation on it, I think. Because what I've got kicking about is this. It's a little Velleman kit amplifier even. It's based on one of the little monolithic Amplifiers, and I think it's good for about, at 12 volts in, I think it's good for between like 8 and 10 watts. The amplifier that this has got in it would struggle to produce 2 watts. So as you can see, what my plan is we're going to have like a completely reasonably stock looking vintage little one valve wonder record player, which is going to have a little bit of a kick to it. It's going to be able, it's going to outperform what it really looks like it should be able to do. It's going to be a sleeper record player, shall we call it that? So the idea, basically, what we're going to do, what we'll finish off in this video is we'll get this thing stripped down. We'll get everything off it that I'm not really going to use on this project, and they can go into my record player spares part. And then in the next video we can perhaps look at, I don't know, we'll perhaps look at sorting the cabinet out, or perhaps look at doing the electronics. Because as well as that, what I plan to use as well, I'm keeping this, basically we're going to use fairly, what I've got, I'm not going to buy anything in for this, it's just what bits I've got lying around really. Speaking of which, I've got a pile of these. Oops, try not to drop them on the floor. These are the cartridges for the like the Crosley style and the Bush modern reproduction record players. I believe they're a Chinese copy of a Japanese cartridge. They're only low output. I think they're under half a volt, about 400 millivolts or something like that. So they're absolutely no use to drive a one valve wonder. They won't even drive that little Velleman amp very well. I mean, they will drive it, but not to its full potential. So what we're probably going to do is build a little preamp stage, a little 1 transistor preamp stage, which can incorporate the volume and the tone control. In fact, I've come up with a circuit for it here. I've been having a fiddle. But we'll go into this in another video anyway. But basically, what we'll do is we'll build up a little preamp stage, a little 1 transistor preamp stage. Like I said, that's going to have the a tone control and the volume control. That'll be driven by one of those modern cartridges, and that will drive that little Velleman amp. And basically, if we was to connect that up to the original speaker in this, we'd just destroy the speaker straight away. Again, that speaker, it's quite a high efficiency speaker, so little 1-2 watts this thing can drive. Will actually drive that speaker quite loud. But they do tend to distort when you get them up to them kind of those kind of loudnesses. It certainly wouldn't be able to cope with the output from that little amplifier, so we'll probably replace that speaker with something a little bit more modern. I mean, that's good for about a good 15 watts, I'd say. So we're going to put something a bit more beefy in there. Get the amp to drive something with a bit more power to it. Like I said, the idea is to have this, like I said, as a bit of a sleeper record player. It's going to look pretty much stock, but it'll have a surprising amount of output to it for a tiny little player like this. We can't go too mad, obviously, because it's such a small cabinet. We don't want the stylus jumping up off the record because the amplifier is too powerful, but within reason, we should be able to do something quite interesting with it. Let's just get these bits out of the way. Just buzz that box and I'll pull that out of the way. There we go. Keep that safe. So, what we need to do, let's get this out of the case. Get the case to one side and we can get this stripped down. Let's get the as you can see, like I said, it was being used for experimentation. We've got various values of resistor here, where I've been trying different values while I was creating that circuit. Well, it looks like we might actually have the well, that's quite useful. We've actually got the screws. Hopefully we've got a full set of them, and the brass cup washers to actually put the motor board back in that case. It would be nice to use the originals just for aesthetics. And we will, like I said, we'll deal with the cabinet in a completely separate video because I've got a few ideas. That's an easy fix to the front, but obviously the cover is completely shot. And I've got an idea of something I want to try with that. Might look quite cool. And I wouldn't like to try it on a very valuable player. Obviously, like I said, this thing's pretty worthless. Well, it is as it is. Hopefully we can make it into something which is, like I said, something quite cool, really. All we really want to keep, for the moment, on here, let's get you, let's get that like that, and we'll get you zoomed into it, and we can get this thing perhaps stripped down. Let's get you zoomed into what we're working on. There we go. Hopefully you can see that okay. Oops. Yeah, hopefully you can see that okay. Right. Little toolbox out. Get some snips out, pliers and what have you. First thing we'll do is we'll get rid of that mains cable, because I plan on actually using a 3-core mains cable on this and earthing the deck. Now, you couldn't earth, well, I suppose technically you could run a 3-core cable on one quite like this and just earth to the metalwork of the deck there. What you can't do is earth to the chassis. This is what's known as a a universal or an AC/DC circuit. Well, in many ways it's interesting. Technically it's not. Technically it's AC only because it uses a auto transformer to provide that basically provides the heaters of the valves with their voltage. It takes a tap off the motor winding, supplies, I think it's about 90 volts, 80 volts or something like that to run the two heaters on those valves there. I think it's 90 volts, so I think they have 45 volt heaters each, those UL84 and UY85. So obviously it wouldn't work on a DC supply, but apart from that, if you had a big resistor in there instead, you could power that circuit up through about 200 volts DC, 240 volts DC, and it would work. Which means that the chassis is actually at mains potential, either live or on the neutral side of mains potential, but depending on how you have the wires connected round to the mains. But that will be a mains potential, so obviously you can't earth it because you get a big flash and a bang and your fuse will blow. It's one of the other reasons why these are considered a bit iffy, because you have got, like, floating mains in there. This one's not so bad because it's actually got a proper UK style plug on, and it's actually got a double insulated mains cable. Many of these little one valve wonders would have had just like it's basically like a twisted flex. It was used a lot on standard lamps and things like that back in the 50s and 60s, and you didn't know which live and neutral was. Worse than that, a lot of the plugs back then were just a 2-pin plug, so you could plug them in either way round, so you had a 50-50 chance of this chassis actually being at mains potential or not. You get faults in the circuit. All you really needed then was something to short across between the deck and that, and your deck's live, and turntables live. So they are a bit dodgy like that, these players. Once we finish with this one, it's going to be 100% completely safe, because we're not going to have really any of these high voltages in here. The only high voltage in the whole unit, really, excuse me, will be what's driving the motor, and obviously a power supply to drive the amplifier. The amplifier itself and all that side of it is basically just going to be 12 volts. Right. Anyway, let's get some of this out of here. I mean, none of this is going to actually go to waste. All this will get reused for other projects. I mean, that's a really nice. That's a nice mains lead. That's definitely not going to be going to waste. There's plenty of AC/DC radios that would cry out for a nice mains lead like that. So that will be going into my spares for another project. We can take that off as well, because that was just there for me when I was playing with that amplifier design. So we can snip that out of the way. We want to leave that there basically in place because we're going to be reusing that. We'll throw that out of the way. In fact, I can go down there. We'll remove the motor just for safety, because I don't want to damage it. We'll probably, because I think that works okay. I think the windings are alright on it. I was playing about with solid state rectification on this at one point. It's a while since I did play with this circuit. Let's cut that off there. And snip that off there. So we've got the centre core from the motor, but in my previous use for this, I was basically just using that as an auto transformer to power the valve filaments up, and I believe I did use the spindle out of that to repair another motor that had a bent shaft on it. so we will have to hunt through all my spares and try and either find another motor which is the correct for one of these small BSR single play decks, or hopefully we'll find enough bits to put that one, rebuild that one. Right, what else do we... Basically we want to get everything else that's on here off. And unfortunately that transformer is no good. As very often happens with these transformers, it's got a bad primary on it, and that's the very fine turned wire, multiple turns. I mean, for a one valve wonder like this, I mean, you could get away with most output transformers to replace it. I've used 100 volt line transformers for audio, like PA use, in these one valve wonders before now, and simple one valve record players as a replacement. I mean, they're not technically impedance matched right, but I've never had a problem using one. They've always worked and they've always sounded okay. So yeah, I mean, you could stick something else in to replace that, but with all, you still would have the issue of the needing a high output cartridge to drive the thing, with it being a one valve wonder, unless you want to, like I said, go to the trouble of modifying the circuit like I did here. Let's get the speaker out. You know, at least we can have a look how much room we've got to fit that other. Well, that's unusual, is it? Right, okay. Looks like they use the same screw to hold the speaker in that holds the armrest for the stylus, for the pickup arm. These are just wood screws, and these will be handy to keep because hopefully if I reuse the same screws we shouldn't make the mistake of cutting a hole, screwing a screw through the board when we put this thing back together. Last screw's looking like it's a little bit. Let's try this. Head's a little bit mashed on it. No, there we go. That's coming out okay. That's not in brilliant condition either, the cone's rubbing on that. It's a shame really, because those aren't bad speakers normally. It's an ELAC speaker. They're usually pretty good, these, but that feels pretty seized actually. There's no compliance on that, and I can feel it scratching. Unfortunate that really, because that would have been a worthwhile speaker to keep otherwise. Probably won't throw it away, I'll probably go in my random speaker box. But we should. We'll have to probably make a baffle up to take it, but we should be able to mount something, you know, like this more modern, that's some more modern speaker in there. So we may make a baffle up that goes over that, and then that takes the new speaker and we can use the old speaker mounts. We'll think about that anyway. We'll see that when we get a bit further on in the project. Right, let's see how much hassle it's going to be to get these control knobs off, because these can be a pain. And you want to resist the temp. Oh well, I was going to say these can be a pain, and the damn thing lifts straight off. That's again one of the other problems with the safety on these things. Imagine, you know, it did have the original plug you could put in either way round, and you've got it the wrong way round, and you pull your knob off, by accident because it come off that easy, you've got potential for that to be live. So that's why they're a bit on the iffy side as they are from the factory. Again, that one came off quite easy, and those are metal shafts. You will get quite a belt instead if it was wired up incorrectly. So all we've really got on here now, a couple of capacitors isolating. That's all you've basically got on these as well, to isolate you from the mains on your pickup wires. Just a cap in each side. Let's snip that free there. We'll snip that free there. Get a screwdriver in, and we should be able to basically get this amplifier off here. Right, that's the control out. Let's see if we can free the amplifier off. There's a screw there. None of this will go to waste. All this will go to repairing other record players. But yeah, there's basically there's the amplifier that I was playing with, and various. It's a fairly simple circuit. Like I said, I think it's based on the Danset Bermuda. Was it the Danset Bermuda Mark II or something like that? I based the circuit on. Anyway, what we'll do, what we do want to retain for this is that plate there. Is basically the only other thing we really want to keep from the original amplifier. So let's hopefully that'll come free. We don't really need the pots because the values that we're going to want using the solid state amplifier are completely different to the values that you would get. So we can just break that off. That you would get on these old pots. I mean, this is the old tone control. I think this one used to be on volume and separate tone. Sometimes you get volume on its own and the ons incorporated with the tone. It really depends on the player, that. Let's put that washer back on there so we don't lose it. Because again, these, I know that these controls are good. These will just go into my spares and they'll go to repair either another record player or a radio or an amplifier or something. But that one is, so that's 500k, and if that's the tone control, we're much more likely to be using something perhaps around the 100k mark. This will be I presume this is the on and volume control. And again, we'll probably, with the solid state amplifier and the little preamp that I'm building. Oh dear, that is tight. Yeah, that's very, very tight. Let me see if I've got something I can a bit older, that will a bit better. Let's try these. Well, again, like I said, we'll probably be around somewhere 250k, 100k, something like that. So these, and this is probably around about the meg mark. If I can get the thing out. There we go. I'll let it go. Yes, that's. We'll see when we get it out what size that that pot is, but I reckon it'll probably be around the 1 megohm. Bloody hell, that's tight. This hasn't been apart for many years. It's a pity we've not even got a date or anything on it. We can have a look. In fact, what we'll do is we'll have a quick look at the smoothing cap when we've got this out, because I think that's the original. And generally speaking, the smoothing caps are dated. Let's see if we can get this off here now. We'll get that. There we go. So that's the bit we want to keep, because that will take the. I mean, yeah, we could have bent a new one up out of a piece of steel, but why bother doing that when we've already got one here? There we go. Break them off. So that's the bit we want to keep. I said that will go. Oh yeah, I said check what that was. What does it say on it? It should say on it. Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah, it's 1 megohm. So it's a 1 meg pot, that. Let's see if we have got a date on the capacitor. Oh, there we go. Well, that dates it for us nicely. It's a Pesley electrolytic, and if we look at the bottom, it's January 1962. So we've got a date for this player. It's 1962. Generic make and manufacturer unknown, 1 valve wonder record player. Stick that back on there so we don't lose it. But none of that original amp chassis, the pots or anything like that will go to waste. They will all go for getting other, possibly more deserving players running again. Like I said, that'll go straight into my spares box, and this is what we're interested in. We'll see how does that fit back on there. Make sure we put it in the right place. That is. Just screw that roughly back in place. Excellent. So basically that's what we want to keep from the original player. What we're going to reuse from the, apart from the cabinet obviously, after it's been restored somewhat, but the actual playing part, that's all we're really going to reuse. So we're going to reuse the arm, we're going to reuse the turntable, speed selector, the motor board, and underneath obviously we'll reuse this wiring, because there's really the wiring at the top here that goes to the get this a little bit, the wiring here that goes to the arm goes to the cartridge. We're going to reuse all that. It is going to still be a mono player, this, but we'll probably I don't know. We can either bridge the cartridge in the actual head to make it mono, or we can plug it in as stereo and do something down here to mono out the signal. We'll decide later how we're going to do that. But we've got plenty of room now to mount the speaker. We can fix that. We can see that the Rexine's coming away a bit off the motor board there, but we can get in there. We can fix all that. Get all that all tidied up. It's coming away here as well. Again, we can fix all that down. We might have to look for a slightly better mat. That mat's a bit on the manky side, but I've seen worse. We should be able to sort that out. So basically we're going to make that look as good as new. From the outside, when you look at the player, you can see we can retain all the original control knobs and everything. So it'll have the original control knobs and everything on it like that. It's just that inside is going to be a lot more modern. It makes it a lot safer. I wouldn't mind being, happily let a child use a record player like this, as where I'd be a bit hesitant if this player was just restored as completely original with the one valve wonder chassis in it and everything. I would be a little bit hesitant leaving a child alone to play records on it, as well. Once this is all done, it's all screwed together and everything. I wouldn't have any worries at all about a child playing the records on it or anything. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there for now. Like I said, in the next part of this video, we'll either crack on with sorting the cabinet and the cosmetics out, or we'll have a play with the new amplifier and getting that actually working a bit. I'm not sure which one we'll do yet. I'll decide in near time. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that little video. Like I said, a little bit different from playing with the computers. I thought we'd have a bit of a change from messing with Macs and computers for a bit, and have a look at something a little bit more vintage. Anyway, thanks for watching and goodbye.